have to say, though, those weren't that mean. I mean, I've got to tell you, you should see what the Senate says about me all the time. I mean, that was some piker stuff.
The Obamas are a family that seems straight out of a storybook. A tale of humble beginnings, meteoric rises, and lives that have captured the world's imagination. But behind the polished image of presidential power and elegance lies a journey of grit, sacrifice, and an unshakable commitment to family. It's easy to see the glitz of the White House years and assume their lives were always wrapped in luxury, but the truth is far more nuanced. What shaped this family's values? Was it the marble halls of power in Washington, or was it the modest apartment on the south side of Chicago where their story began? To truly understand the Obamas, we must rewind the clock to a time before the world knew their names. Before the spotlight found them, before the motorcades and state dinners, the Obamas were just another family navigating the challenges of urban life. In the heart of Chicago's South Side, Michelle Robinson and Barack Obama were building a life together that was rooted in simplicity but fueled by ambition. Michelle, the daughter of Fraser and Marian Robinson, often spoke about her modest upbringing in a small upstairs apartment on Euclid Avenue. Her father, a pump operator, worked tirelessly despite battling multiple sclerosis, while her mother stayed home to raise Michelle and her brother Craig. It was in this humble home that Michelle learned the values of hard work, self-respect, and resilience. Values she would later pass on to her own children.
But we're doing great. The girls are good. Barack is working. We've got projects going. So we're staying busy and traveling. We've had some fun.
Are you still working on a lot?
Yeah,
I'm not going to challenge you to anything.
Yeah, no. I'm not dressed for a challenge.
I'm not either.
Barack, meanwhile, was carving out his own path as a young community organizer. Long before he became the 44th president, he was walking the streets of Chicago, working to improve lives and bring people together. His days were spent listening to the struggles of ordinary folks, trying to find solutions for problems that seemed insurmountable. At night, he would return home to a tiny apartment, dreaming of the changes he wanted to see in the world. When he met Michelle at a law firm in 1989, their bond was instant. She was the mentor, he was the new intern. But it didn't take long for her to see that Barack wasn't just another ambitious young professional. He was someone with a vision that could change the world. Their life together began simply. They weren't the power couple we know today, but a young duo figuring out how to balance their demanding careers with their desire for a meaningful life. Michelle often joked that Barack's optimism could be frustrating. He was always dreaming big, she said, but sometimes I just wanted to focus on paying the bills and getting through the week. They got married in 1992, and their world expanded with the birth of their two daughters, Malia in 1998 and Sasha in 2001. Like many parents, they were juggling sleepless nights and the never-ending chaos of raising young children.
So, when you're at home, can you run down to the kitchen in your underpants in the middle of the night if you're hungry?
I mean, I could. I don't.
You don't.
In those early days, the family's life revolved around small, everyday rituals. Barack made breakfast every morning, a tradition he kept even during his presidency. It was non-negotiable, Michelle said. No matter how busy we were, we always started the day together as a family. The Obamas weren't afraid of hard work, but they also knew how to find joy in the simple moments. Whether it was a game of basketball with neighbors or a family trip to the local park, they cherished the time they had together. But life wasn't without its challenges. As Barack's political career began to take off, he often found himself away from home. As a state senator in Illinois, he would commute hours to and from Springfield, leaving Michelle to manage the household on her own. We had our share of arguments, Michelle admitted. I wanted him to be present, but I also knew he was working towards something bigger than both of us. Those years tested their marriage, but they also strengthened their resolve. Michelle described it as a period of growth. It taught us how to communicate, how to compromise, and how to be a team.
Right, and I think one of the things that we all have to work through is learning how to decode when that fear is going to help us and when it's holding us back. Because you come out here every night and you make it look easy, but I know that there is always a thing in people who are in the public eye where you have to get over that crest of fear and get out here and do your thing.
Their daughters, Malia and Sasha, were growing up in a world that was vastly different from the one their parents had known. While Michelle and Barack had faced financial hardships and systemic barriers, they were determined to give their children opportunities they never had. The girls attended the University of Chicago laboratory schools, an elite private institution that provided a top-tier education. But even as they invested in their daughters' futures, the Obamas remained committed to keeping them grounded. Michelle insisted that Malia and Sasha do chores just like any other kids. As Barack's political star continued to rise, the family's life began to change in ways they never could have imagined. By the time he announced his candidacy for the presidency in 2007, the Obamas had already become a household name in Illinois. But the campaign catapulted them onto the national stage, bringing both excitement and challenges. Michelle, who had been reluctant about Barack running for president, worried about what it would mean for their family.
Personally, for me, if I were able to run for a third term, Michelle would divorce me. So, So it's useful that I don't have that choice to make.
For Malia and Sasha, the campaign was their first taste of life in the spotlight. Suddenly, they were no longer just regular kids. They were the daughters of a man who could become the leader of the free world. Michelle worked tirelessly to shield them from the chaos, insisting on regular routines and family time. "I didn't want them to feel like they were part of a circus," she explained. "I wanted them to have as normal a childhood as possible." When Barack won the presidency in 2008, the Obamas' lives were transformed overnight. Moving into the White House was surreal, especially for Malia and Sasha, who were just 10 and 7 years old at the time. For most kids, home is where you can run around in your pajamas and leave your toys scattered on the floor. But for the Obama girls, home was now a 132-room mansion filled with staff, security, and constant attention. Michelle recalled the moment they arrived at the White House. It was exciting, but it was also overwhelming. "I remember thinking, how do we make this feel like home?"
We're just bracing for what was that big thing gonna be? How bad would it get?
Despite the grandeur of their new surroundings, the Obamas remained committed to keeping their family life as normal as possible. They set up a playroom for the girls, complete with books, games, and art supplies. Michelle made sure they still had chores, even if it meant making their beds in a room that looked like it belonged in a palace. "We wanted them to understand that no matter where we lived, the rules didn't change," she said. Life in the White House came with its perks, of course. Malia and Sasha had the chance to meet world leaders, travel to exotic places, and experience once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. But Michelle was adamant that these privileges wouldn't define them. "I told them, this is not normal, this is temporary," she shared. "I wanted them to appreciate the experience, but I also wanted them to know that it wasn't real life."
I still remember when I was thinking about running for president. She said, "I think you would make an outstanding president, and I would work so hard to make sure you were president. You're the kind of person we need if I weren't married to you."
Even as the world watched their every move, the Obamas worked hard to create a sense of normalcy for their daughters. They held family dinners every night, a tradition that Michelle insisted on even when Barack's schedule was packed. It didn't matter if he had a meeting with world leaders or a speech to give, she said. He had to be home for dinner. That was non-negotiable. But no amount of routine could fully shield Malia and Sasha from the pressures of their new life. Every outfit they wore, every expression they made, and every word they spoke was analyzed and critiqued by the media. Michelle admitted that it was tough to watch her daughters endure such intense scrutiny.
Me going high is not losing the urgency or the passion or the rage, especially when you are justified in it. Going high means finding the purpose in your rage. Rage without reason, without a plan, without direction is just more rage.
Through it all, Michelle's parenting philosophy remained the same. She was their mother, not their friend. "I didn't care if they liked me," she said. "My job was to prepare them for the world, not to make them happy all the time." This approach wasn't always popular with Malia and Sasha, but it was one that Michelle believed in wholeheartedly. "They didn't always understand it at the time," she said, "but now, as they've grown older, I think they see the value in it." As the Obamas settled into their new life, they faced the challenge of balancing their public roles with their private responsibilities. For Barack, this meant juggling the demands of the presidency with his commitment to being a present father. For Michelle, it meant navigating her role as First Lady while ensuring her daughters remained grounded. It wasn't easy, but it was a challenge they embraced together as a family. What was it like for Malia and Sasha to grow up in the most famous house in America? Did they ever feel the weight of their father's legacy, or were they able to hold on to the carefree joys of childhood? The answers lie not just in the walls of the White House, but in the values their parents fought so hard to instill in them. And as the years unfolded, those values would be tested in ways no one could have predicted.
Hard to look at that and go,
No, it is not.
No?
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, the thing about what I learned in those 8 years is that home is where we make it, and we were in the White House for 8 years, but it wasn't the house, it was us in it. It was
Right.
our values and our love for each other, and
Yep.
we just moved that to another house. So.
When the Obamas left Chicago, they brought more than just their belongings with them. They carried the essence of who they were, a family rooted in love, resilience, and an unyielding belief in the power of hope. But as they stepped into the global spotlight, they would discover that holding on to those values was both their greatest challenge and their greatest triumph. The journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. The White House may be one of the most recognizable homes in the world, but for Malia and Sasha Obama, it was also the place where they had to learn some of the hardest lessons about life, family, and themselves. Imagine growing up in a house where nothing is really yours. Every corner, every room, every inch of that massive residence is steeped in history and watched over by an army of people. Security, staff, and even the media. Privacy, forget about it. Even something as simple as going outside to play came with restrictions most of us could never imagine. Yet through it all, Malia and Sasha seemed to thrive, guided by the firm yet loving hands of their parents and the steady influence of their grandmother, Marian Robinson. Marian Robinson, now there's a name that deserves more recognition. While the world was watching Barack and Michelle navigate the pressures of running a nation, Marian was quietly holding everything together behind the scenes. She wasn't just their grandmother, she was their anchor. Moving into the White House wasn't exactly her dream. In fact, she reportedly agreed to it, kicking and screaming, as her son Craig Robinson once joked. Marian was a woman of routine, someone who valued her independence and cherished her quiet life in Chicago. But when Michelle asked her to come along to help with the girls, Marian didn't hesitate. She understood, perhaps better than anyone, just how much Malia and Sasha would need a steady, familiar presence in their lives as they transitioned into this new, surreal world.
Don't do that. I mean, look, they all have their smartphones, and they're texting with their friends. They're doing all the stuff that teenagers are doing.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Michelle and I try to emphasize to them that they don't want to be
In the
on
news.
TMZ.
Yeah, right.
Once inside the White House, Marian made it her mission to keep life as normal as possible for her granddaughters. She insisted on doing her own laundry, a small act that symbolized her determination to remain grounded. And she didn't just sit back and let the White House staff take over. She was actively involved in the girls' lives, from making sure they finished their homework to teaching them how to navigate the challenges of growing up in the public eye. Michelle described her mother as our rock, someone who provided wisdom and stability not just for the girls but for the entire family. Marian's role wasn't just about helping with the day-to-day, she was also a quiet enforcer of the values Michelle and Barack held dear. She reminded the girls to stay humble, to treat others with respect, and to never lose sight of who they were, no matter how extraordinary their circumstances became. One of the more touching anecdotes about Marian's time in the White House involves her relationship with the staff. Unlike many in her position, she made an effort to get to know the people who worked behind the scenes, from the butlers to the florists. She would sneak out of the White House gates to run errands at CVS, often without security, blending into the crowd like any other grandmother on a shopping trip. On one occasion, a fellow shopper recognized her and said, "You look like Michelle's mother." Marian, ever humble, simply replied, "Oh, I get that a lot." Her ability to stay grounded, even in the most extraordinary circumstances, was a lesson in itself for Malia and Sasha. For the girls, having their grandmother in the White House was a blessing. While their parents were often busy with the demands of public office, Marian was a constant presence. She created a sense of normalcy in a place that was anything but normal. Sleepovers at Grandma's room became a weekly highlight, filled with late-night snacks and storytelling. Michelle once joked that Marian let the girls tear up her room, building pillow forts and eating food they weren't supposed to. It was these small, everyday moments that helped Malia and Sasha stay grounded, even as their lives were anything but ordinary. But life in the White House wasn't all fun and games. The girls had to navigate a world where every move they made was scrutinized, every outfit they wore dissected, and every expression they showed turned into a headline. Who could forget the controversy over their facial expressions during the annual Thanksgiving turkey pardon? It was a moment that should have been lighthearted and fun, but instead it became a national talking point when a political staffer criticized them for supposedly being disrespectful. The backlash was swift, with critics pointing out the unfairness of targeting two young teenagers simply for being themselves. For Malia and Sasha, it was just another reminder of how different their lives were from those of their peers.
She is not sorry.
They are looking forward. All the women in your life are looking forward.
All the women in my life are looking forward to being able to, live a more normal life.
Yeah, but still not entirely normal. Obviously, everybody's under the microscope at all times.
A little bit more.
And you're staying in Washington, D.C., which is unusual for an exiting president.
Through it all, Michelle remained fiercely protective of her daughters. She knew the world was watching, waiting for any opportunity to criticize or misunderstand them. People are quick to cut a kid off if you don't show up right, Michelle said in an interview, so they had to come correct. It's a sentiment that underscores just how high the stakes were for Malia and Sasha. They weren't just representing themselves. They were representing their family, their parents, and, in many ways, an entire community. The pressure to be perfect was immense, but Michelle made sure her daughters understood that their worth wasn't tied to public opinion. I told them, I don't care if people like you. What matters is that you respect yourself and know what works for you, she explained. As the years went by, Malia and Sasha grew into poised, confident young women. Malia, the older of the two, was often described as the more outgoing and adventurous one. Her decision to take a gap year before attending Harvard made headlines, with many praising her for choosing to explore the world and gain real-life experience before diving into college. During that year, she interned on the set of the television show Girls and worked at the Weinstein Company, sparking rumors about her interest in the entertainment industry. Meanwhile, Sasha, known for her quieter and more reserved demeanor, was carving her own path. After graduating from high school, she enrolled at the University of Michigan before transferring to the University of Southern California, where she has been pursuing her studies while maintaining a relatively low profile. Despite their different personalities, the sisters have remained incredibly close. Now living together in Los Angeles, they've created a life that's a mix of independence and sisterly support. According to Michelle, their bond is one of the things she's most proud of. They're the only two who know what they just went through, she said, referring to their unique experience of growing up in the White House. Their shared history has made them each other's greatest allies, a relationship that continues to strengthen as they navigate adulthood. Of course, stepping out of the shadow of their parents hasn't been easy. Even as they've built lives of their own, Malia and Sasha are still closely watched by the media and the public. Their outings in Los Angeles, from grocery runs to casual dinners, often make headlines, with commentators analyzing everything from their fashion choices to their body language. While this constant attention might be overwhelming for some, the sisters seem to take it in stride. They've learned how to balance their public personas with their private lives, a skill they undoubtedly picked up from their parents. Michelle, in particular, has been a guiding force in helping her daughters navigate this transition. Her parenting philosophy, which she shared during appearances on various podcasts and interviews, has always been about preparing her daughters for the world outside their family bubble. "You're not going to live here with me forever," she often told them. "So I have to hand you your life and let you manage it." It's a sentiment that has resonated with many parents, especially those who admire Michelle's ability to balance love and discipline. By teaching her daughters to be independent, she's given them the tools they need to thrive, even in the face of challenges. And challenges there have been. In recent years, the Obama sisters have faced their fair share of scrutiny, from rumors about their personal lives to exaggerated stories about their social activities. Yet through it all, they've remained poised and focused on their goals. For Malia, that means pursuing a career in the entertainment industry, where she's already made a name for herself as a writer on Donald Glover's Amazon series, Swarm. Sasha, on the other hand, appears to be charting a slightly different path, one that's more grounded in academics and personal growth. As the Obama sisters continue to grow and evolve, one thing is clear: they are more than just the daughters of a former president. They are individuals with their own dreams, ambitions, and identities. And while their journey is far from over, they've already proven that they have what it takes to succeed on their own terms. The foundation laid by their parents and the steady influence of their grandmother have prepared them for whatever comes next. And as they step further into their independence, the world will undoubtedly continue to watch, captivated by the story of two young women who grew up in the most extraordinary of circumstances, yet remain refreshingly grounded. As the Obamas continue to inspire and captivate us, we can't help but wonder, how will Malia and Sasha navigate their futures beyond the White House? Will they follow in their parents' footsteps or forge entirely new paths? Share your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more celebrity insights. Until next time, farewell.